Opening, let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat alone, not scrolling, not multitasking, but truly alone? The kind of alone where the noise fades and it's just you, your thoughts, and maybe a bit of discomfort. We live in a world that equates solitude with loneliness. But here's the truth, being alone isn't a punishment, it's a superpower. In our day-to-day lives, we're constantly surrounded by external noise, notifications, conversations, deadlines, and the endless hum of other people's opinions. It's no wonder we sometimes lose track of who we are. Though often misunderstood as isolation, is not about loneliness. It's about creating intentional space to reconnect with yourself. And in that space, self-awareness begins to bloom. When you're alone, something profound happens. You stop performing. You're no longer playing roles or adjusting your behavior to meet expectations. There's no audience to impress, no need to wear masks. Instead, you're left with just yourself, the raw, unfiltered version. At first, this might feel uncomfortable, even unnerving. We're not always used to confronting our true selves. But it's in that discomfort where growth begins. Solitude provides the clarity needed to understand your emotions. When you take a step back from the noise, you have the chance to ask yourself meaningful questions. What am I truly feeling right now? Am I happy, or am I just going through the motions? What do I need, and what do I truly want? In these quiet moments, you begin to recognize patterns in your thoughts and behaviors. You notice what energizes you and what drains you. You start to see where you might be self-sabotaging or where you're chasing things that don't align with your values. This kind of awareness doesn't come when you're constantly surrounded by distractions. It comes when you're alone, with time to reflect. Solitude also helps you differentiate between the voice of the world and your own inner voice. We live in a society that constantly tells us what success, happiness, and love should look like. But when you're alone, you get to sift through those external influences and ask yourself, what do I believe? What's important to me? That's where the real breakthroughs happen. And here's the most beautiful part: self-awareness born in solitude doesn't stay there. It spills over into every part of your life. When you know yourself, your strengths, your boundaries, your values, you show up differently in the world. You make choices that align with your authentic self. Your relationships become deeper because you're no longer looking to others to fill gaps within you. You approach challenges with more confidence because you spent time understanding your inner landscape. So the next time you're tempted to fill every quiet moment with noise, resist. We live in a world that glorifies hustle and busyness. Productivity has become a badge of honor, and stillness is often mistaken for laziness. But the truth is, real strength, the kind that grounds you, guides you, and sustains you through life's storms, doesn't come from constant activity. It grows in the stillness. Stillness is not just the absence of motion, it's the presence of intentional quiet. It's the space where we pause, reflect, and let our inner selves come into focus. In a society that thrives on distractions, stillness can feel foreign or even uncomfortable. But that discomfort is a sign of its power. When you allow yourself to be still, you create the conditions for resilience to take root. Life throws challenges at us, some small, some monumental, and it's in the moments of stillness that we process these experiences. Without time to reflect, emotions and stress build up, overwhelming us. Stillness gives us the opportunity to acknowledge what we're feeling, understand it, and let it flow through us instead of letting it control us. Think of stillness like the eye of a storm. While chaos swirls around, stillness is the place where you regain clarity and strength. It's where you remind yourself of what truly matters and gather the energy to move forward. This kind of inner strength doesn't come from running away from challenges or masking them with distractions. It comes from sitting with them, facing them head on, and allowing yourself to grow through the process. In stillness, you also learn to trust yourself. When you strip away the noise of the outside world, you can finally hear your own intuition. It's in these moments that you realize you don't need to rely on others for validation or direction. You discover an inner compass that guides you through uncertainty with confidence and calm. This self-trust becomes a wellspring of strength, helping you make decisions, set boundaries, and stand firm in your convictions. Stillness also cultivates patience, a rare and underrated form of strength. In a fast-paced world, waiting feels unbearable, but stillness teaches you that not everything needs to happen immediately. It allows you to sit with uncertainty and resist the urge to act impulsively. Patience nurtured in stillness gives you the endurance to weather life's long journeys and to trust that growth often happens beneath the surface, out of sight. Finally, stillness is a place of restoration. Just as muscles grow stronger during rest after exercise, our emotional and mental strength grows when we allow ourselves time to recover. The constant push to achieve and perform can leave us depleted, but stillness replenishes us. It's in these quiet moments that we heal, gain perspective, and emerge stronger than before. Strength doesn't mean never falling down. It means having the courage to pause, reflect, and rise again. And stillness is where that courage is born. So when life feels overwhelming, remember this: your power doesn't come from running faster. It comes from stopping, breathing, and finding your center. True strength grows in the quiet spaces where the world slows down and you find yourself in the whirlwind of daily life. It can feel impossible to think deeply. We're constantly bombarded with information, surrounded by people, and juggling tasks that demand immediate attention. Creativity, innovation, and fresh ideas often get lost in the noise. That's why solitude is such a powerful catalyst for ideation. It gives your mind the quiet space it needs to wander freely and make new connections. When you're alone, there's no pressure to think a certain way or conform to the expectations of others. In group settings or collaborative environments, brainstorming can sometimes feel constrained. People often filter their thoughts either out of fear of judgment or a desire to fit in. But solitude frees you from those constraints. You're no longer editing your thoughts for an audience, and that freedom allows your creativity to flow in its purest form. In solitude, your brain enters a state that psychologists call default mode. This is when you're not actively focusing on solving a problem or completing a task. Instead, your mind is free to wander, daydream, and make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. This is the birthplace of creativity. Some of the most groundbreaking ideas in history, from scientific discoveries to artistic masterpieces, were born not in crowded rooms, but in moments of quiet reflection. Think of solitude as fertile ground for innovation. When you give yourself the time and space to think deeply, you allow ideas to take root and grow. You can explore them fully, following each thread of thought without interruption. In solitude, you're more likely to ask yourself the kinds of big, open-ended questions that lead to transformative insights. What if I approached this problem differently? Why hasn't anyone tried this before? What's the boldest, most imaginative solution I can envision? Solitude also gives you the chance to step back and see the bigger picture. In the busyness of life, we often get stuck in the weeds, focusing on immediate problems and short-term solutions. But when you're alone, you can zoom out and think strategically. You can connect dots that you might not have even noticed before, seeing patterns and possibilities that were hidden in the chaos. Another reason solitude fuels great ideas is that it lets you tap into your inner voice. In a world full of external influences, social media, colleagues, mentors, it's easy to lose sight of what you truly think and believe. Alone time helps you reconnect with your own perspective. It's in these quiet moments that you can hear the whispers of your intuition and the flashes of inspiration that come when your mind is free to roam. But solitude isn't just about generating ideas, it's also about nurturing them. Once you have a spark of inspiration, you need uninterrupted time to develop it. Solitude allows you to experiment, make mistakes, and refine your ideas without external pressure. It's a space for curiosity and play where you can follow your instincts without worrying about judgment or deadlines. Finally, solitude enhances focus. When you're alone, you're free from distractions and interruptions, which allows you to dive deep into your creative process. This deep focus is essential for bringing your best ideas to life. In solitude, you're not just scratching the surface, you're digging into the core of your creativity, uncovering insights that might otherwise remain hidden. So the next time you feel stuck or uninspired, remember this: your best ideas aren't waiting in the noise of the world. They're already within you, waiting to be discovered in the quiet of solitude. Make space for that quiet. Protect it. And watch as your mind surprises you with the brilliance it's capable of when given the chance to breathe. One of the most transformative gifts of solitude is emotional independence, the ability to feel whole, grounded, and fulfilled without relying on external validation or constant companionship. In a world that often equates being alone with being lonely, learning to find peace and strength within yourself is a radical act of self-empowerment. Solitude is the space where you cultivate this independence step by step. When you're alone, you have the opportunity to turn inward and explore your emotions without distraction. It's easy to lean on others to make us feel better when we're sad, frustrated, or anxious. While support from loved ones is important, true emotional resilience comes from learning to process those feelings on your own. In solitude, you're forced to sit with your emotions, understand them, and work through them. This practice builds a foundation of self-reliance. You learn that you can weather storms without needing someone else to fix you. Solitude also helps you recognize the difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness comes from a sense of lack, a feeling that something is missing. But solitude, when embraced intentionally, is an act of self-care. It teaches you that your own company can be enough, that you don't need constant interaction to feel valued or complete. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. You begin to realize that your worth isn't tied to how many friends you have, how busy your social calendar is, or how much external validation you receive. Your value comes from within, and solitude helps you see that. Emotional independence also means being able to take responsibility for your happiness. It's tempting to look to others to fill our emotional gaps, to make us feel loved, appreciated, or secure. But solitude reminds you that no one else can do that work for you. When you spend time alone, you learn how to meet your own needs. You discover what makes you happy, what soothes you when you're upset, and what brings you a sense of purpose. This self-knowledge is empowering because it means you don't have to rely on anyone else to feel whole. You can create your own joy even in the quietest moments. Another way solitude fosters emotional independence is by teaching you to set boundaries. When you're comfortable being alone, you're less likely to tolerate unhealthy relationships or situations out of fear of isolation. You know that you can stand on your own, so you become more selective about who and what you allow into your life. This strength to say no, to protect your peace, is a hallmark of emotional independence. Solitude also allows you to confront fears that might otherwise go unnoticed. Many people avoid being alone because it forces them to face uncomfortable truths about themselves, their insecurities, regrets, or unmet needs. But in solitude, you learn to sit with those feelings, to acknowledge them without judgment, and to work through them. Over time, this process makes you more emotionally resilient. You realize that you don't need to run from discomfort because you have the tools to handle it on your own. Finally, emotional independency in the hustle and chaos of daily life. It's easy to feel stretched thin, like there's never enough time, energy, or space to breathe. Our schedules are packed, our minds are cluttered, and our emotions often run on autopilot. It's in these moments when life feels overwhelming that alone time becomes not just a luxury but a necessity. It's the ultimate reset, a way to pause, recharge, and realign with yourself. Alone time acts like pressing the refresh button on your mind and soul. When you step away from the noise of the world, be it social obligations, work stress, or the endless scroll of notifications, you create space to rest your mental faculties. This isn't just about taking a break, it's about creating a deep, intentional pause. It's about giving your mind a chance to stop processing external inputs and start tuning into your internal world. One of the key ways alone time resets you is by lowering stress. Constant engagement with others, whether in person or online, can be draining. We expend energy managing relationships, meeting expectations, and responding to demands. In solitude, all those pressures fade away. You can simply be without needing to perform, explain, or accommodate anyone else. This quiet time allows your nervous system to shift out of fight or flight mode and into rest and digest mode, calming your body and mind. Alone time also helps you regain perspective. When you're constantly surrounded by noise and activity, it's easy to lose sight of what really matters. Small problems can feel enormous, and important goals can get buried under trivial distractions. So, here's the truth: life will always pull you in a million directions. There will always be people, deadlines, and distractions clamoring for your attention. But the power of being alone, the clarity, strength, and creativity it brings is something you can only find when you intentionally choose it. Remember, solitude is not about escaping the world, it's about reconnecting with yourself. It's where you hear your own voice, rediscover your resilience, and recharge your spirit. So don't be afraid to embrace the quiet, to sit with yourself, and to find the beauty in being alone. Because when you do, you'll realize that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you build with yourself. Take that time, honor that space, and watch as the world and your place in it becomes clearer, stronger, and more authentic.